Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the top stories first. Three blasts have rocked Afghanistan's capital city of Kabul, leaving 3 people dead. Security civilians say 2 civilians and a policeman were among those killed, while 5 others wounded. Today's explosion occurred amidst a sharp increase in targeted attacks in Kabul in the last 2 months. Pakistan's foreign minister has urged India to resolve the issue of occupied Jammu and Kashmir as per the United Nations resolutions. Addressing the virtual conference of the OIC contact group, Shah Mahmood Qureshi called on India to halt its atrocities in Kashmir, which has become the biggest open jail in the world. He urged the international community to take note of Indian atrocities in the occupied valley. In India, farmers are holding a wheel jam strike across the country in protest against the controversial farm laws. Meanwhile, the UN Human Rights Office urged demonstrators and the government to exercise maximum restraint. Tens of thousands of farmers have been camping at Delhi borders for over 2 months, demanding a rollback of the laws. Myanmar's military rulers have shut down the internet across the country. This comes in the face of a growing protest movement against the coup that ousted Aung San Suu Kyi and halted democracy. Meanwhile, thousands of people have joined the protest against this week's military coup in the country's biggest city of Yangon. Brazil's coronavirus death toll has surpassed 230,000, while its caseload has exceeded 9.4 million. Pakistan has registered nearly 1,300 new cases and 28 new deaths overnight, as its toll tops 11,900. Globally, the virus has claimed over 2.29 million lives and infected over 105 million people so far. And in Pakistan, cricket take 113 lead over South Africa in their second innings of the final test at Rawalpindi. Earlier, Hassan Ali's 5-wicket haul helped Green Caps restrict the visitors to 201. Pakistan lead the 2-match test series 1-0 after winning the first test by 7 wickets. These were the headlines. News in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. 3 blasts have rocked Afghanistan's capital city of Kabul, leaving 3 people dead. Today's explosions occurred amidst a sharp increase in targeted attacks in Kabul in the last 2 months. Security officials say 2 civilians and a policeman were among those killed, while 5 others wounded. No group has claimed responsibility for the attacks. Earlier, the Defense Ministry said 27 Taliban fighters were killed during operations in different parts of the country. Now, the United States has reaffirmed its commitment to an enduring partnership with Afghanistan. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin reiterated Washington's resolve during a phone call to Afghan President Ashraf Ghani. The Pentagon said the 2 leaders talked about the Afghan peace process and the imperative for a negotiated settlement to end the war. In a statement, it said Austin and Ghani discussed the shared sacrifices of US and Afghanistan forces in the war against terror. They also acknowledged the collective gains made over the last 2 decades. The Pentagon added both sides emphasized the importance of seizing this opportunity for peace. The call comes as Afghanistan faces rising attacks, with both the Taliban and the government pinning blame on each other. Now, Pakistan's foreign minister has urged India to resolve the issue of occupied Jammu and Kashmir as per the UN Security Council resolutions. He called on India to halt its atrocities in Kashmir, which has become the biggest open jail in the world. Addressing the virtual conference of OIC contact group, Shah Mahmood Qureshi commended Azerbaijan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Niger for expressing solidarity with the Kashmiri people. He called on the OIC to forcefully urge India to lift the continuing military siege and provide access to rights organizations in the valley. Qureshi said India has violated the international laws through controversial legislation in changing the demographic structure of the territory. He urged the international community to take note of Indian atrocities in the occupied valley. Meanwhile, the New York State Assembly has passed a resolution to observe February 5th as Kashmir American Day. This resolution makes New York the first state to recognize Kashmir Day. The resolution was passed by a majority vote in the New York State Legislative Assembly. Governor New York Andrew Cuomo issued the notification after the Assembly passed the resolution. Pakistani Consul General in New York, Aisha Ali, said the Pakistani community played an important role in getting the bill passed. Pakistan observes 5th of February as Kashmir Day to support Kashmiri's struggle for their inalienable right to self-determination. Now in India, farmers are holding a wheel jam strike across the country in protest against the controversial farm laws. Tens of thousands of farmers have been camping at Delhi borders for over 2 months, demanding a rollback of the laws. Police detained several farmer union leaders, including the chief, Animesh Das, ahead of the strike. Police also set barbed wiring, concrete walls, trenches, nails, bore drilled onto roads. Authorities have also planned online and drone surveillance. Security forces armed with anti-riot gear have been deployed to stop protesters from entering into the capital. Meanwhile, the United Nations Human Rights Office urged demonstrators and the government to exercise maximum restraint. Meanwhile, in Myanmar, the military rulers have extended a social media blockade to Twitter and Instagram until further notice. Now, this comes in the face of a growing protest movement against the coup that ousted Aung San Suu Kyi and halted democracy. A Twitter spokesperson said the company is deeply concerned about the order to block internet services in Myanmar. The Facebook confirmed the block on Instagram and urged the authorities to restore connectivity. In a statement, LUNAR said it had challenged its necessity to authorities. Meanwhile, thousands of people have joined a protest against the coup in Myanmar's biggest city of Yangon. The protesters shouted against the military, saying the dictators will fail and democracy will win. They also called for the release of San Suu Kyi and others who have been detained since the army seized power on Monday. The International Criminal Court has ruled that it has jurisdiction over war crimes committed in the Palestinian territories. The ruling has paved the way for the World Court for a possible war crimes investigation.
The ICC judges said the court's territorial jurisdiction and the situation in Palestine extend to the territories occupied by Israel since 1967. They said these territories include Gaza and the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The Palestinian Authority has welcomed the top court's ruling, saying it is a historic day for the principle of accountability. Prime Minister Mohammed Shatayyeh called the ICC decision a victory for justice and humanity. However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected the decision, calling the tribunal as political. Meanwhile, the U.S. says it has serious concerns about ICC's efforts to assert jurisdiction over Israeli personnel. ICC's prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda, said her office is studying the decision. In 2019, Bensouda said there was a reasonable basis to open a war crimes probe into Israeli military actions in the Gaza Strip and settlement activity in the West Bank. The top UN court's ruling came after Bensouda asked the court to determine whether she has territorial jurisdiction before proceeding with the case.
Now, the United States says it intends to revoke the terrorist designation of Yemeni Houthi movement. This comes the day after President Joe Biden declared a halt to U.S. support for the ongoing war in Yemen. The State Department said the reversal was entirely due to the dire humanitarian situation in Yemen. It said the action did not reflect Washington's view of the Houthis and their reprehensible conduct. The previous administration blacklisted the Houthis a day before Biden's inauguration, drawing criticism from the UN and humanitarian organizations. Meanwhile, the UN has welcomed the plan, saying it will provide relief to millions relying on humanitarian aid. The world powers have welcomed Libya's rival political group's agreement to form an interim government. The interim setup was formed after 5 days of talks in Switzerland. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres welcomed the development, saying the UN will keep supporting Libyans to build a peaceful country. The United Kingdom's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office said the governments of France, Germany, Italy and the US hailed the agreement. Turkey welcomed the development, hoping that the new government will take office as soon as possible on the basis of a roadmap adopted by the forum. The Libyan forum selected interim government with Mohammed al-Menfi as Presidency Council head and Abdul Hamid Dbeibeh as Prime Minister. All the candidates for the new government vowed to hold national, presidential and parliamentary elections on the 24th of December. Meanwhile, Brazil's coronavirus death toll has surpassed 230,000, while its caseload has exceeded 9.4 million. Globally, the virus has claimed over 2.29 million lives and infected over 105 million people. Let's find out more in this report.
The complications attached to the COVID-19 disease keep growing as the virus gets stronger. In the U.S., Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington says an estimated 631,000 Americans will die from COVID-19 by June 1st. Meanwhile, the U.S. House of Representatives has passed a key step, enabling Democrats to push President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package through Congress. In Brazil, after the intense political controversies over the handling of the outbreak in the city of Manaus, the regional authorities are boosting the COVID-19 hospital's capacity to cope with the surging cases. In Europe, Portugal is witnessing more critical COVID-19 patients than ever, as the situation intensified in the country with over half of deaths occurring after December 30th. A more contagious variant of the coronavirus first detected in Britain now accounts for almost 6% of all cases in Germany. In the UK, up to 100 children per week are being hospitalized with a rare post-COVID-19 disease. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization says the number of vaccinations has surpassed the number of reported infections globally.
More than 3/4 of those vaccinations are in just 10 countries that account for almost 60% of global GDP. Almost 130 countries with 2.5 billion people are yet to administer a single dose.
Meanwhile, South African special investigators say around $17 million in coronavirus funds were siphoned off last year. New Zealand is investigating a new community infection among people who completed mandatory isolation at an Auckland quarantine facility.
Meanwhile, in Pakistan, another 28 people have died from COVID-19 overnight. The country's death toll has risen to 11,914. The Health Ministry has reported 1,286 new infections overnight. The ministry says out of nearly 553,000 cases detected so far, over 508,000 have recovered. It added the number of active COVID-19 cases has crossed 32,000. The ministry said more than 2,000 patients across the country are admitted in hospitals. The Pakistan Navy is set to hold the 7th multinational maritime exercise AMAN this month in Karachi. The naval forces from around 45 countries will participate in the 5-day drill being held to promote peace.
Pakistan Navy is on the front from the defense of maritime frontiers to humanitarian assistance, from national to regional collaborations, and from regional security patrols to global partnerships. The multinational naval exercise AMAN is conducted after every 2 years since it was initiated in 2007. This year's exercise is being held under the motto, Together for Peace. In the drill, naval forces from across the world exchange their experiences in order to combat common threats at sea. The Pakistan Navy official says the drill has played a significant role in enhancing the country's war and maritime security capabilities. The naval drill is believed to play a pivotal role in promoting regional and global maritime peace and stability.
More news coming up in this bulletin after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, the US Air Force will carry out a comprehensive review of security on its bases all around the world. This comes after an intruder entered a key military facility which is home to Air Force One, the aircraft that flies the president. Officials said an unarmed man was able to make his way onto Joint Base Andrews, but they added there were no indications that he had any links to any extremist groups. Talking to reporters, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said the authorities made adjustments to security protocols at the base.
Everybody in the department, and certainly everybody in the Air Force, understands what a serious matter this is. They have made adjustments to their security protocols at Andrews. They've now ordered a full investigation of it, and they've gone a step further in order to look at all the security protocols and installations worldwide. So let's let them do their work.
Well, Kirby also spoke about the U.S. military plans for stand-downs pausing regular activity at some point in the next 60 days. Now, the United States says it has affirmed the centrality of the transatlantic relationship with the EU3 in dealing with issues. The State Department said Secretary of State Antony Blinken held a virtual meeting with his British, French and German counterparts. The U.S. State Department said the leaders discussed coronavirus pandemic, Myanmar, Russia, China and climate change. It added Blinken underscored U.S. commitment to coordinated action to overcome global challenges. French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian said the leaders had an in-depth conversation on Iran to handle nuclear and security challenges. Now, one person has been killed and 10 others wounded in a series of stabbings in Croydon, southern part of UK's capital, London. The Metropolitan Police said 2 people are suffering life-threatening injuries while 2 others have been arrested in separate incidents. It said the police is investigating the circumstances surrounding all these incidents. However, it added there is no information at this stage to suggest that the incidents are all linked. Additional resources have also been deployed from the Violent Crime Task Force and Territorial Support Group to prevent further violence. Now moving to Chile, where hundreds of anti-government protesters hit the streets of the capital Santiago calling for an end to inequality. Police in riot gear used water cannons and tear gas to disperse the demonstrators. The demonstrations called for reforms to existing pension, healthcare and education systems. The South American country has seen protests against stark inequality for over a year now. Chileans voted in favor of a new charter to replace the country's Pinochet-era constitution in late last October. 3 mountaineers, including Pakistan's Ali Sadpara, have gone missing while ascending K2 following their winter summit. Pakistan's Alpine Club's officials say Army helicopters are carrying out the search operation. Other 2 missing mountaineers are Iceland's John Snorri and Juan Pablo Moore of Chile. The 3 adventurers left Camp 3 for their summit push a day earlier. Sajid Sadpara, the 4th mountaineer on the expedition, began an early descent due to his oxygen regulator malfunctioning. Officials said he will be escorted to base from Camp 3 by a team of Nepali Sherpas. Meanwhile, one climber from Bulgaria, Atanas Katov, lost his life while ascending to Camp 3. Now, 4 SpaceX Crew 1 astronauts living aboard the International Space Station are set to surpass the U.S. record for most days in space. In a statement, NASA said the crew members will surpass the record of 84 days set by Skylab 4 crew on the 8th of February in 1974. The flight engineers docked the spacecraft to the Harmony Module's International Adopter on November 16, 2020. NASA said the space station's orbital path will take it within the sighting range of Tampa, Florida. It said if the weather allows, Super Bowl fans in Tampa may be able to spot the station. New Zealand has celebrated its National Day, Waitangi, culminating almost a week of celebrations, speeches and ceremonies. The day marks 181 years since the signing of the Treaty of Waitangi between the British and Maori chiefs in 1840. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern spoke at her dawn ceremony that, despite the coronavirus pandemic, was attended by thousands. At the end of the ceremony, she served the barbecue breakfast among the participants. During her address, Ardern said she acknowledged the partnership between all New Zealanders to strive for better.
May we achieve understanding and knowledge. Today, we mark the Treaty of Waitangi, Te Tiriti o Waitangi. We acknowledge our partnership, constantly learning, striving for better, holding hope for the future.
Now, Chinese people are gearing up for the upcoming Lunar New Year. They are preparing festive delicacies and rehearsing folklore performances for celebrations with coronavirus precautions in place. Let's find out more in this report.
With their own local traditional customs, people all over China are engaged in the festive atmosphere. From food that bears auspicious meanings to performances, flowers and presents, Chinese people are gearing up to express best wishes for the Year of the Ox. In Sichuan province, the residents of Zhangongling village put on local bull dancing to mark the most important festival of the year, which falls on February 12th.
The festive atmosphere rose up when the performance started and the scrolls were written. In the new year, I hope all my family members can be healthy and that our beautiful village can be built better and better.
Food is the essence of festivities and has a specific significance attached to it. In Nanling County of Anhui Province, families will have a reunion meal with 8 dishes to wish for a prosperous new year. In Jinhua City of China's Xinjiang Province, there is a custom of eating steamed buns with red prints, which means reunion and prosperity. The festival is also a stimulus to the country's consumer market, which is seeing a steady recovery from the coronavirus economic woes. Flowers, food, decorations, and zodiac patterns are the hot items.
We want to share the delicious food with our neighbors. I hope that our lives will become better. I hope that we can be as healthy and beautiful as these blooming flowers, and that our lives will also be as prosperous as these flowers.
China's public holiday will be from February 11th to February 17th, but the government hopes to discourage travel for Lunar New Year this year due to the coronavirus pandemic. This holiday traditionally sparks what has been called the world's largest annual human migration.
Oscar-winning Canadian actor Christopher Plummer passes away at the age of 91 in Connecticut, US. His wife Elaine Taylor said the cause of the death was a blow to the head as a result of a fall. In 2012, Plummer became the oldest actor to win an Oscar for the Best Supporting Actor in Film, Beginners. Plummer also won 2 Tony Awards for his performances in the play Barrymore and the musical Cyrano. Plummer appeared in more than 100 films, including The Sound of Music and The Insider. He also contributed voices for Up, An American Tale and the TV series Madeline. Now, in the United States, new job creation in the month of January has fallen behind economics expectations. The Department of Labor data shows the addition of 49,000 new jobs against a forecast of 100,000. The report said the growth of jobs in service and education sectors was suppressed by the decline in jobs across the economic sector. It said the number of jobs in entertainment, hospitality, retail and healthcare sectors dropped significantly. However, with new jobs growth, the unemployment rate fell to 6.3%, 0.4% lower than December. But the report added it was not enough to significantly improve the unemployment situation in January. Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund has warned of a lost generation if the low-income countries do not get more help. Addressing a video conference, IMF Chief Kristalina Georgieva urged advanced economies to provide more resources to avert the danger. Georgieva said 50% of the developing countries are at the risk of falling behind. She said an emerging great divergence in global growth could risk stability and trigger social unrest. The IMF had also urged heavily indebted countries to seek debt restructuring and to boost conditions for growth. Georgieva said accelerating vaccinations could add $9 trillion to the global economy by 2025, with 60% of the benefits going to the developing countries. Now, Nigeria's Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is poised to become the first African and first woman to lead the World Trade Organization. The development comes after her South Korean rival withdrew and the U.S. expressed strong support for the Nigerian. Former U.S. President Donald Trump wanted South Korea's Trade Minister Yoo Myung-hee as WTO's chief. But the President Joe Biden's administration has pledged to work with the Nigerian on needed reforms. In a statement, the White House lauded Okonjo-Iweala's experiences at the World Bank. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala is an economist and already enjoys broad support from the WTO members, including European Union, China and Australia. And now let's have a look at the weather updates across the globe. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus Specs.